welcome. 25 years of doing this event, and every year we get a full house, and every year I believe that we put on a very effective workshop. It is about providing information, but also letting you have access to folks who have equipment, folks who would be responding during the disaster, and I guess trying to make sure that everybody understands what each person's or organization's role is. Why do we do it every year? Why is it so important? Well, the last big hurricane to hit Houston was Hurricane Ike. And there are 1 million, and I will repeat that, 1 million new people in the greater metro area who have not experienced a hurricane in this region. Many from other parts of the country who may never have experienced a hurricane at all. This is our opportunity to sort of increase everyone's base knowledge level and make sure we all understand our roles. That's important because just as in a disaster, in a hurricane situation, there are certain things that I am expected to do, certain things I am required to do. There are going to be certain things that you are expected to do and you're required to do. And we all have to do it in cooperation. We all have to listen and communicate, and certain things have to happen in a certain order. So having these annual workshops allows us to make sure that we all know our jobs. Now, some of you may be here because you have been directly hurt by the flooding event that happened over the Memorial Weekend. We do have FEMA representatives here, and they are set up to take your registrations for recovery from that flooding event. That's an additional element of today's workshop. I'm not going to say that there was anything good that came out of a flood that killed 7 people here in Houston. But there was a positive, and that is that the system worked. It worked well. It was a good reminder that even when a weather event hits us by surprise, the planning and the preparation and the work we do year-round, and then with a specific focus each year when hurricane season starts, worked for us in the flood. The thing that folks should remember who, again, have never experienced a hurricane is that in most cases, we will have some warning that a hurricane is heading toward us. In some cases, we'll have days of warning, but hurricanes can develop in the Gulf and strike relatively quickly. But still, it's not like you go to bed at night and we get 11 inches of rain and the water starts to rise. There is a period of preparation and communication, but it can be a very short period. The message that we will be conveying today is that because you now have chosen to live on the Gulf Coast, hurricanes are a factor here every year, whether they come to Houston or not. They'll strike someplace in the Gulf Coast, and wherever you live along the Gulf Coast, everybody has to do the same types of thing. One is, and again, since we had this flooding event, you now know the importance of it. Everyone needs to have a plan. What would you do if the water started to rise? What would you do if a tornado touchdown because our flooding event actually started on Sunday with a tornado that struck in southwest Houston and put hundreds of people out of their apartments. So you need to have a plan. We also would like you to begin to prepare a kit, and you're going to get information today that will help you do that. In fact, I believe you may have received it in your packets that you got in that swag bag when you came in. Wear a kit. Where are your important papers? Are there medications that you take? It's great to have a Ziploc bag with copies of birth certificates and driver's licenses and prescriptions, so that if, we hope it doesn't happen, but if you had to evacuate, you could just grab that bag. You know, everybody knows where it is, it's ready to go, and you have the information. Have a plan, make a kit, stay informed. One of the things we all experienced over the last 2 weeks as the waters rose was that you were receiving information about where the flood waters were, areas to avoid, and at some point you received messages both from me and from the county judge to stay home. The way our emergency system works, the county judge is the central emergency coordinator, but each mayor is the emergency point of contact for their city. Because of the media market here, this is a multi-county region, there are hundreds of cities. Because of the media market, Harris County Judge Ed Emmett and I, in communication with the other counties and the smaller city mayors, are generally the people that you would see and hear. And it's our goal to make sure that we are giving you exactly the same information and that everybody knows before we stand up in front of a TV camera, we're clear and our local government partners are clear about what's going to happen. This is very important that communication goes on, because in a hurricane, certain parts of this region would need to evacuate. Not everybody, however. And we would be giving clear and precise instructions as to whether or not you would need to evacuate. If you, rule of thumb, if you live inside the 610 loop, west and north, you would probably not be expected to evacuate. If you live east from here down to, all the way down into Galveston County, the city of Galveston, the Clear Lake area, you might be expected to evacuate. And the only way that people in Galveston and Bolivar, and if you remember Ike, Bolivar looked like someone had taken a bulldozer and just scraped the entire housing stock along that beach off. If you live in Bolivar, if you live in Galveston, directly on the coast, you must evacuate when that order is given. And in order for them to come to safety, those of us who are not in the direct path of the flood need to shelter in place. I was going to say it's like having it's like a square dance, and there's a caller who's going to be calling the moves, and the moves have to be in a certain order so all the dancers get to the right place in the floor. But since this is Texas, I will say that it's like the football team and the quarterback is calling the play at the line of scrimmage. Everybody knows what the different plays are. Before they get to that line of scrimmage, quarterback calls the play and everybody moves the way they need to move. That's what has to happen. That's the most important message I get, that you need to listen, you need to be aware of what your particular circumstances are, And when those messages come out, everybody has to do it in the right order. And so having a plan involves knowing where you are in relationship to the coast. If you are in an area that will probably receive an evacuation order at some point, you need to know what your evacuation route is. If you're in a part of the city that we're going to tell you to shelter in place, it means that you need to stay off the roads so that people who are more in harm's way have an opportunity to flow through us and get to other areas of the state and get out of the potential storm surge. If you shelter in place, because that is what we have asked you to do, you have an opportunity, if there's wind damage to your home after a hurricane, if there is water damage to your home, because you may still experience flooding even if you are not in the storm surge. It gives you an opportunity to secure your property, to discover whether we're going to be without power for a while. Then you have the opportunity to evacuate if you choose. But biggest message I can say is know your own circumstances, have that plan, build a kit so that if you do have to leave, you have your important documents, you have your medications, and stay informed. Finally, I will just say that we all like being good neighbors. That's part of being a Texan. If you weren't born here, you're a Texan now, and Texans look after each other. And so we have contingencies for those who might be disabled, but we can't find everybody elderly, disabled. So we ask folks, look after your neighbors. It's a great time to get to know who lives on either side of you, who lives down the street, before you get to know them because the power's out and we're all sitting in our front yards waiting for the power to come back on. We're going to talk, will be specific information about how we handle those with disabilities, but the most important message there is that each year we create a list, and that is if you call 211, we know 911 for an emergency, 311 if you want to report a city problem. 211 is where we can register those who, in the event that there is a power outage that lasts several hours or days, and you are dependent on a machine that must have power, we need to know you're there so that we can come back and check on you. If you are disabled and might, again, whether you are in an evacuation zone or not, may need assistance after a hurricane, we need to know that. We need to know that. We would like to know that in advance, and so calling 211 allows us to put you into the system.